Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we unpack a stack of sources to really get into the fascinating details.
Yeah, we dig deep.
Today we're plunging into excerpts from Everything Is Tuberculosis, The History and Persistence of Our Deadliest Infection by John Green.
It's a really powerful book. It explores how this one illness, has quietly shaped so much of human history, our culture, even how we think about health and justice.
Yeah, and our mission today really is to try and understand why. Why is it that tuberculosis, even though we've had a cure since, the mid-1950s,
That's right.
why does it remain the world's deadliest infectious disease?
It's a huge question. And the book argues, that in the 21st century, TB isn't just about the bacteria anymore, the Mycobacterium tuberculosis that we know how to kill.
Right.
It's really about these deeper things, the social determinants of health. Poverty, malnutrition, injustice.
That's such a key insight. And we're going to explore that, how our ideas about illness change, the really surprising ways TB connects to history, and, the sheer human cost of neglecting a disease we can cure. Yeah.
So get ready for maybe some surprising connections, because what we're unpacking here, it's really a lot more than just medical history.
Definitely more.
Okay, so to start, let's ground ourselves in a personal story. It really brings the past to life. Around the turn of the 19th century, James Watt.
A steam engine guy.
Exactly. Famous for making steam engines way more efficient. He became completely obsessed with treating this lung disease they called phthisis back then.
Phthisis. Yeah.
And why? Because his daughter Jessie died from it. She was only 15. And his son Gregory was suffering too.
Oh, that's tragic. A terrible introduction to what they called consumption. Because it literally, wasted the body away.
Yeah. Watt even invented this device to try and deliver nitrous oxide into Gregory's lungs.
Wow, really? Nitrous oxide?
Yeah, but it didn't work. Gregory died anyway at 27.
Still so young.
And then you fast forward to 1900. The disease has a new name, tuberculosis. And the author mentions his own great-uncle, Stokes Goodrich, born that year. Yeah, he also died of TB at 29. And his father was a doctor, a country doctor. Just shows.
It shows the limits, right? And the source points out this powerful paradox. We can light up the world, we can send things into orbit around Earth.
Incredible technological power.
But we still can't always save the people we love from suffering. And the scale of suffering from TB, it's just immense.
It really is. Just think, by 2023, over 1 million people died of TB. That's more than malaria, typhoid, and war combined.
Wow.
And over the last 2 centuries, it's estimated TB caused over 1 billion deaths. Maybe 1 in 7 people who've ever lived.
1 in 7, that's staggering.
It is. So it brings us back to that question.
Okay.
If we've been able to cure it since the 1950s, why are so many people still dying? What does that say about, our priorities?
There's that quote from Dr. Peter Mugeni, the Ugandan physician, talking about HIV/AIDS, but it fits so well here.
What did he say?
Where are the drugs? The drugs are where the disease is not. And where is the disease? The disease is where the drugs are not.
Oof. Yeah, that hits hard. And it absolutely applies to TB.
So how does that dynamic, that drugs are where the disease is not, how does that play out specifically with TB today?
Well, it plays out in a really stark way. We know TB is caused by this airborne bacterium, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Anyone can get it, right? Maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of everyone alive has been infected at some point.
1/3. That many?
Yeah, huge numbers. But most infections stay dormant, latent. Maybe up to 10% develop active TB. And who gets active TB? Mostly people with weakened immune systems.
Okay, so from malnutrition, HIV, diabetes.
Exactly, which means today, TB is overwhelmingly seen as a disease of poverty. It thrives in crowded places, poor ventilation. It follows, as the book says, the trails of injustice. It preys on vulnerability.
So it's not just the bacteria, it's the conditions that let it flourish.
Precisely.
To really understand that human side, let's go to Sierra Leone. The source makes this point. It's often called a poor nation, but it's actually incredibly rich in natural resources.
Right, that's a crucial distinction.
And there, we meet Henry. He's a 17-year-old boy in Laka Government Hospital. But because he was so malnourished, he looked like a child. Just heartbreaking.
Yeah, and the description of the hospital itself, it paints a picture. Locke is described almost like prison cells.
Really?
Yeah. No reliable electricity, no consistent running water, not even toilets in the wards. It was originally built as a leprosy isolation facility. And you kind of feel that history, that grim atmosphere.
Wow.
And Henry was there suffering from MDR TB, multi-drug resistant TB.
Which is much harder to treat.
Much harder. And yet the author notes, Henry radiated this sort of encouragement, even though he was emaciated, suffering liver toxicity, swollen lymph nodes.
He told the author the injections burned like a fire under his skin.
Yeah, incredibly painful treatment. And the worst side effect he mentioned,
Hunger.
hunger.
Above everything else.
Hunger. It's profound, and it's so often overlooked. There's another survivor mentioned, Marie, who dreamed of eating mud soup and sticks.
That's
Desperate. Hospitals like Lhasa, they feed patients 3 times a day, but the source says it's not nearly enough. Why? Because food isn't officially considered an essential aspect of tuberculosis treatment.
seriously, food isn't essential.
According to the funding structures, no. So it receives no dedicated funding. And this desperate hunger, it can actually lead patients to abandon their treatment, which, of course, fuels drug resistance. It's a vicious cycle.
That's awful. And then there's the stigma.
Huge stigma. Many patients at Lhasa are abandoned by their families. Henry, though, he was fortunate. His mother, Isatu, visited regularly. She brought food.
She stood closer when everyone ran away. That quote just.
It says so much, doesn't it? It really underscores how these social forces, family, community, stigma, they shape the entire experience of being ill. For better or often for worse.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea the author explores. Everything is tuberculosis. It sounds like hyperbole, right? But the book reveals these really surprising, almost weird connections.
Yeah, it's not literal, obviously. But it's about how the disease reflects and shapes society in ways we just don't normally think about.
Like what?
Well, for instance, did you know TB helped give us the cowboy hat?
The cowboy hat. Seriously. How?
It comes back to that travel cure idea in the 19th and early 20th centuries. People with consumption fled cities, seeking dry air. Places like Arizona, New Mexico. They called it the land of new lungs.
Okay.
So John Stenson, the hat maker, he actually recovered from consumption out in St. Joseph, Missouri. Then he went west, thought the hats there were terrible, basically sucked, and designed the iconic cowboy hat we know today,
Oh,
stemming from his experience with TB.
that's wild. And there's more.
Yeah. New Mexico's statehood is partly tied to TB. In 1910, something like 10% of everyone in New Mexico is a TB patient.
10%.
Yeah, they were actively wooed there,
Yeah.
particularly from the Northeast and South, partly to increase the white English-speaking population. And that push helped lead to statehood in 1912.
Wow. So disease is literally shaping borders and politics.
Subtly? Yeah, but profoundly. There's even a connection, though the book cautions not to overstate it, to World War I.
How on earth?
3 of the young assassins involved in Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination in Sarajevo, Joko Kabrinovic, Trifko Grabez, and Gavrilo Princip.
Yeah.
They were all teenagers and all had consumption, TB. They knew they were likely dying soon anyway.
So they were more willing to risk everything for their cause.
That's the suggestion. They felt they had left to lose. Their cyanide pills failed after the assassination. They got caught, imprisoned.
And
All 3 died of TB in prison before the war even ended.
man, that's a connection I never would have made.
But again, the source is careful. History is complex, right? You can't view everything through just one lens. What's maybe more important is how culture has shaped TB.
Okay, how so?
Well, TB has exploited our biases, our blind spots, for centuries. Look at Sierra Leone again. That poverty isn't just some natural state.
Right, you said it's rich in resources.
Exactly. It's a direct product of colonial resource extraction. The railroads they built. They didn't connect people to people. They connected mines and resource areas to the coast for export.
Taking wealth out, not building it up locally.
Precisely. After 150 years of British rule, life expectancy in Sierra Leone was under 30. In Britain, it was 69. Colonialism actively depleted communities.
And then there was the slave trade before that.
Devastating. Created what they called war roads, displaced millions.
Right.
Henry's mother, Isatu, she's Mende, she grew up hearing stories of those raids long after abolition was supposed to have happened.
So this history of extraction and violence is deep.
Very deep. Isatu described her childhood as joy, 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 woven with friends. But then the Civil War hit Sierra Leone.
Right, in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah, it displaced her. She had to give birth to her daughter, Favor, at home because the clinics were destroyed or underfunded.
And then Ebola hit.
Then Ebola, 2014 to 2016. That just hollered out the health system even more. So many healthcare workers died. Funding poured in, but then it left just as quickly, leaving all these half-finished projects.
An acute on chronic crisis, the book calls it.
Exactly. So when Henry's TB came back, roaring back in 2015, he and Isatu were slow to see treatment. They were scared of getting infected at clinics. They knew clinics were often closed.
And that delay is where drug resistance explodes.
That's where it thrives. And tragically, Henry's sister, Fever. She died at 7. Throat tumor. Couldn't get surgery because they couldn't afford it.
Oh my God, that succession of blows. No wonder Henry felt despair.
It's almost unimaginable.
You know, we often ignore disease when we talk about history. We like to think it's all about human choices, big decisions.
Right, agency.
But the sources argue history is also what's done to us. And TB, it's been done to us for a long, long time, at least 5,000 years, evidence in China, maybe even 3 million years in early hominids.
It holds the Guinness World Record, apparently, for the oldest contagious disease.
Get out.
Yeah. And the names for it through history tell the story, don't they? Lung exhaustion, wasting away, destroyed palace, corpse disease. Consumption, because it seemed to just shrink people, shrivel them up. And for most of history, it seems random. Rich, poor, it didn't matter. Charles Dickens said, wealth never warded off.
Victims like the Bronte sisters, John Keats, Kafka.
Exactly. Artists, thinkers, everyone.
But it was confusing, right? Because it wasn't like cholera, quick plague. It was slow, unpredictable.
Super confusing. Was it inherited? Was it contagious? Was it diet? Curses? Demons? People had all sorts of theories.
Although some got close, didn't they? Like Ibn Sina, the Persian scholar, 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, remarkably close to germ theory. He suggested illness came from tainted foreign organisms that are not visible by naked eye. Amazing foresight.
So what makes the TB bacteria itself so weird, so effective?
Well, Mycobacterium tuberculosis is odd. It grows incredibly slowly, takes days just to double, and it builds this really thick, fatty cell wall.
Which makes it hard to kill.
Exactly. White blood cells struggle to break it down. Instead, they kind of wall it off, forming these things called tubercles, calcified balls of tissue.
Ah, so that's where the name comes from.
That's the name. And the bacteria can just sit inside those tubercles, dormant, sometimes for your whole life.
But if your immune system weakens...
Then boom, active disease emerges. It slowly overwhelms the body, lungs collapse, hemorrhage. It can spread anywhere, brain, bones.
So thinking about medicine back then, say 1804, what could doctors actually do?
Not much, honestly. Surgery was usually fatal. No proper sewers. Doctors weren't really more effective than faith healers for many things.
No antibiotics, antiseptics, x-rays.
Stethoscopes even?
Nope. European medicine was still stuck on the 4 humors, you know, blood, phlegm, bile. There's a story of a German physician in the 18th century who didn't even know humans had a digestive tract.
Wow. It's a different world.
Totally different. But one symptom became iconic, almost a trope. Coughing up blood.
Right, the blood on the handkerchief. Moulin Rouge, Red Dead Redemption 2. It's still shorthand for tragedy. It is. And we know that's usually lung TB. But like I said, TB can hit anywhere. Brain swelling, meningitis. Bone deformities like Pott's disease.
Pott's disease.
Yeah, it attacks the spine. It's what likely caused the hunchback of Notre Dame's condition.
Okay, this is one of the most fascinating parts for me. How did this horrible wasting disease somehow become romanticized?
It's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
But as TB exploded in European cities, 18th, 19th centuries, it was just too common to dismiss as only affecting the immoral poor.
Right. It hit everyone.
So instead, this idea emerged, especially among the upper classes, that consumption was somehow beautiful, ennobling even.
Ennobling? How?
Well, it was called the robber of youth because it hit young adults so often. And this idea of the tuberculous personality developed sensitive, melancholic, creative, brilliant.
Like the dying artist trope.
Exactly. Women were said to become more beautiful, more ethereal as they wasted away. Charlotte Bronte, who lost siblings to it and died of it herself, actually called it a flattering malady.
A flattering malady, wow.
And you see it in art, in fashion ideals. Pale skin, rosy cheeks from the fever, wide, almost sunken eyes from low oxygen. That became a look.
People wanted to look like that.
Some did. Edgar Allan Poe's mother, Eliza, died of TB at Crumley 4. People admired her stereotypically tubercular beauty. There's that famous photo, Fading Away, by Henry Peach Robinson from 1858.
I think I know that one. A young woman dying in bed.
That's it. It shocked some people because it was so realistic, but others, even Prince Albert, admired it as a depiction of a good death.
And people actually tried to mimic the look.
Oh, yeah. They used belladonna eye drops to dilate their pupils, get that wide-eyed look, put red paint or pigment on their cheeks for the feverish glow.
That's wild. And the source asks, how much do those consumptive chic ideals still echo today?
It's a chilling question. There's a comment mentioned from a person struggling with their weight, wishing a wasting disease like TB could make them be seen as beautiful. That shows how deep those ideals run.
Oof. And then there's the intersection with race. That's just stark.
Deeply disturbing. For a long time in the 19th century, white doctors actually believed phthisis consumption only affected white people.
They called it the white man's plague.
Yeah, as if it proved their superiority somehow. They completely ignored or explained away the massive amount of illness among enslaved people, among colonized populations.
Because admitting it was widespread would undermine the whole colonial project.
Exactly. It didn't fit the narrative of racial hierarchy.
But then Robert Koch discovered the actual bacterium in 1882. Mycobacterium tuberculosis, that must have changed everything.
Radically. Overnight, the story shifted. The era of consumption, that sort of inherited soul-enriching condition, that ended.
And the era of tuberculosis began.
An infectious disease. And suddenly, it became associated with the poor, the marginalized. The narrative flipped completely.
So how did the racialized medicine part change?
It pivoted instantly and cruelly. White doctors who previously ignored TB in black populations now claimed the high rates were proof of black inferiority.
What? How?
They came up with pseudo-scientific reasons. Smaller chest capacity, faster breathing rates, things like that, completely ignoring the actual drivers. Systemic racism, crowded housing, terrible nutrition, zero access to healthcare.
It was just racism dressed up as science.
As one anonymous black physician at the time called it, pure hogwash.
And this led to real harm, right? Like in the residential school.
Horrific harm. In Canada and the U.S., indigenous children forced into residential schools died of TB at unbelievable rates. In the 1930s and 40s, the rate was something like 8,000 per 100,000 children per year.
8,000 compared to what for white Canadians?
More than 10 times higher. It was, the source states plainly, the result of deliberate neglect and mistreatment. It's hard to call it anything other than violence.
This all comes back to stigma too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. People living with TB, even today, often say fighting the stigma is harder than fighting the disease itself.
Being abandoned, blamed.
Told it's God's punishment or dark magic. One young woman who was abandoned said, "To them I am not a person." The book links this to our deep human need to find explanations, to tell himself he understands, even if the reasons we invent are cruel and wrong.
Yeah. It resonates when you think about how many illnesses get stigmatized as some kind of moral failing instead of just biology and circumstance.
It's a pattern, sadly.
But, okay, Koch discovers the bacillus. There must have been some hope then, a shift towards public health.
There was a big push for hygiene. Campaigns against spitting in public, women's hemlines got shorter to avoid dragging through street germs, men shaved off beards, the revolt against the whisker.
Of germs in the beard.
Exactly. And the sanatorium movement absolutely boomed.
Right, these specialized hospitals for TB patients.
Yeah, designed to isolate patients to stop the spread, but also supposedly to cure them with rest, clean air, sunshine. By 1925, the U.S. alone had over 500 sanatoria, tens of thousands of beds.
But what was life like inside? Was it really curative?
Curative? Not really. Before antibiotics. And life inside sounded excruciatingly dull and controlling. Patients' lives were completely regimented.
This source mentions Gail Perkins.
Yeah, a really powerful story. Diagnosed with bone TB at age 3. Spent 12 years in a sanatorium.
12 years as a child.
From 3 to 15, she remembered being punished for crying, for wetting the bed, isolated behind screens, total control over everything, movement, choices, even emotions.
That sounds awful.
And her best friend there, Angie, died of TB. Years later, Gail found out that Angie's father had been faking letters from Angie's dead sister to try and keep Angie's morale up while she was dying.
Oh, that's just heartbreaking.
It shows the desperation, the human cost, and this dynamic of control over care is something that echoes in TB treatment even today. Patients were told a positive attitude was key, but then they watched their friends die around them.
No wonder so many survivors were told to hide their TB history, claim they had polio instead.
Yeah, polio was infectious, obviously, but somehow less stigmatized than TB.
But then things changed. Quite suddenly, the book says. The cure arrived.
Yes. After decades of research, the breakthroughs came in the 1940s and 50s. Streptomycin first that cured people like Bob Dole and Gail Perkins eventually.
Wow.
Then isoniazid ursinamide. By the mid-50s, using these drugs in combination made TB broadly curable. A genuine medical miracle. Sanatoria started emptying out.
A triumph of science.
Absolutely. But here's the tragic twist, the core of the book's argument, really. The cure didn't reach everyone.
The drugs are where the disease is not a problem again.
Exactly. By 1980, TB rates had plummeted in rich countries. But in low and middle-income countries, places like Ethiopia, Their TB death rate in 1990 looked like the U.S. rate back in 1882.
As if the cure didn't even exist for them.
Pretty much. And a big driver of this was these lingering racist and colonial attitudes. The idea that poor communities, often black and brown communities, couldn't be trusted to handle complex drug regimens properly.
So instead of getting the best treatment,
They often got substandard care or care models based on distrust, which leads us to DOTS.
DOTS, directly observed therapy, short course.
Right. Developed in the 70s, rolled out globally later, the idea was specifically for resource-poor settings. Patients have to go to a clinic every single day to have someone watch them swallow their pills.
Every day. That sounds like a huge burden.
It is. And while DOTS has saved millions of lives since the 90s, it has major flaws. It often relies on old diagnostic tools like smear microscopy.
Which misses half the cases.
Yeah, about 50%, especially in kids like Henry. And when treatment fails, the system often blames patient noncompliance.
But it's not just patients choosing not to take pills.
Rarely. It's usually systemic issues. The clinic's too far away. They can't afford transport. The clinic runs out of drugs. Stockouts are common. They can't afford food, and you need food to take the meds without getting sick. The side effects are brutal. Patients get depressed, and the stigma is crushing.
So calling it noncompliance misses the whole picture.
Completely. As one expert quoted in the book said, "I know of no other field of medicine where therapy is based so completely on lack of trust toward patients."
And DOTS failed Henry. He ended up on these older injectable drugs.
Including one called kanamycin, which
Okay.
caused permanent hearing loss in one of his ears.
Just awful side effects. But wait, why wasn't he getting newer, better drugs like bedaquiline that was available in rich countries since 2013?
It was. But this is where the economics get really ugly. Bedacoline's development was heavily funded by taxpayers, public money.
Okay.
But the patent, the monopoly, was held by Johnson & Johnson, and they charged over $1,000 for a course of treatment.
$1,000. Way too expensive for Sierra Leone's health system.
Completely out of reach. So patients like Henry got stuck with the older, toxic, less effective injectables instead because of cost, because of a patent.
It makes you ask that question the book raises. Why did we go nearly 50 years from 1966 to 2012 without developing any new drugs specifically for TB?
It seems bizarre, doesn't it? One of the stranger choices in human history, Green calls it. But the reality is, there's just not much profit incentive for pharmaceutical companies to develop drugs primarily for the world's poorest people.
The market fails them.
The market fails them. And you see the human cost so clearly in stories like Shreya Tripathi's.
She was an Indian TB activist.
Yeah, she had XDR TB, extensively drug-resistant, even tougher than MDR. She knew bedaquiline was her only hope, but she couldn't get it in India initially.
So what did she do?
She sued the Indian government for access. She knew it might be too late for her personally, but she said she wanted her suffering to mean something for others.
Did she win?
She won the case. It forced the government to make the drug available more widely. But for Shreya, it was too late. Her lungs were too damaged. She died.
Oh, no.
And in her final days, apparently, she was rereading John Green's novel, The Fault in Our Stars. She connected deeply with the main character's breathlessness. Green calls this a Marco Polo moment where the reader calls out and the author hears. It's incredibly moving.
Wow. Yeah. But back in Sierra Leone, Henry had Dr. Jiram.
Dr. Jiram sounds like a true hero in this story. He saw Henry not just as a case number, but as a person.
There's that moment when Henry's father wanted to take him home, basically to die.
Yeah, he was giving up hope. But Dr. Jiram pleaded with him. He said something like, "If this boy is not doing well on a new drug regimen, come and beat me. Don't hit me today. Beat me later if this fails."
He put himself on the line like that.
That level of commitment, of trust, of human connection, it convinced the father. It kept Henry at LACA.
And they found a way to get him better treatment.
The team Henry was involved with, Partners in Health, they found the funding somehow. Henry became the very first person in Sierra Leone to get a personalized, tailored drug cocktail using newer drugs, including bedaquiline.
And did it work?
Dr. Jiram said it was like magic.
Yeah.
Henry's ruptured lymph nodes started healing. He gained 10 pounds in a month. After 3 years in the hospital, Henry went home.
That's incredible. And it shows that virtuous cycles are possible, right?
Exactly. Think back to the 90s. The WHO was saying MDR-TB was too expensive to treat in poor countries. It's writing people off.
But Partners in Health didn't accept that.
No, they went to Peru, where MDR-TB was rampant, and they proved it was treatable, even though it cost maybe $20,000 per patient back then. They showed it could be done.
And that put pressure on drug companies.
Huge pressure.
Yeah.
Activists used that data, plus the fact that patents on many older TB drugs had expired to demand lower prices.
And prices dropped.
Dramatically.
Yeah.
From like $15,000 for a course of MDR TB drugs down to $1,500. Massive change.
And then the bedaquiline fight happened later.
Yeah, led by activists like Fameza Tissel. She was a young South African student who survived MDR TB but lost her hearing completely from the injectable drugs. She took something like 20 or 30,000 pills over her treatment.
Unbelievable.
She and another activist challenged Johnson & Johnson's patent on bedaquiline in countries like South Africa and India, and they won key victories.
Forcing the price down.
Yeah, it dropped the price by over 60% in many places, making it way more accessible. It just shows, as the book says, cost effectiveness is a moving target. What seems too expensive one day can become affordable with activism and political will.
So, Henry. He goes home after 3 years. What's he doing now?
It's an amazing update. He went back to secondary school, did really well. Now he's a second-year university student in Freetown.
No way. Studying what?
Human resources and management. And that GoFundMe the author set up raised over $60,000.
Yeah.
Henry and Asatu were able to buy a small home.
That's fantastic.
But he's not just a student. He's also a YouTuber now.
Really? What kind of videos?
He documents life in Freetown, the good and the bad. He celebrates the joys, but also raises awareness about challenges. He fundraises for things like clean water projects, operations for people.
And he talks about TB.
Crucially, yes. He openly identifies as a TB survivor. He fights the stigma head-on, telling others if you have the disease, you can overcome it. He's turning his experience into hope for others.
Wow.
And apparently, he calls John Green Dad. A title, Green says, you have to earn.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for us, for you listening? This deep dive, it really hammers home that TB today in the 21st century. It's not really caused by a bacteria we don't know how to kill.
We do know how to kill it.
Right. The real causes now are these social determinants. Food insecurity, poverty, racism, lack of education, poor sanitation, weak healthcare systems.
Ultimately, the cause is us. Our choices, our systems are inaction.
Dr. KJ Sung, another TB doctor featured in the book, puts it so starkly. He says if everyone, everywhere, had access to good health care, the number of people who should die from TB is...
Zero. Zero people should die of TB.
Zero.
Now, eliminating TB infection entirely, that's a much harder, longer-term goal. There are animal reservoirs, it's too widespread.
But stopping deaths from TB...
Living in a world where no one dies from this curable disease, that is absolutely a choice we could make.
It would mean huge changes, though. Reforming systems, like the book says, making a preferential option for the poor, investing not just in clinics, but in food, housing, education.
Improving healthcare and the social determinants side by side. There's actually a comprehensive plan now called STP. Search, treat, prevent. Search for active cases using better diagnostics. Treat them effectively with the right short-course antibiotic regimens. And prevent further transmission through public health measures and addressing latent TB.
And the cost.
Estimates are around $25 billion a year globally, which sounds like a lot, but the economic benefits preventing lost productivity, healthcare costs, are estimated to be over 40 times that amount.
It's actually a good investment.
A massively good investment, ethically and economically. And it can be done. It's been done in smaller communities, specific regions, when the resources and political will are there.
So the question is, will we choose to create those virtuous cycles globally? Or will we look back in horror at the vicious ones we let continue?
It's strange, isn't it? Living in this time where a preventable, curable infectious disease is still our planet's biggest infectious killer.
Henry's life, it just embodies that possibility of overcoming incredible odds. But not just through his own will, right?
No, it took collective action. Dedicated healthcare workers like Dr. Gygram, organizations like Partners in Health, the generosity of strangers through the GoFundMe.
His survival reminds us we can't really grasp the statistics. The millions suffering or dead, it's too big. But we can grasp one person.
We can fathom Henry and Asatu and Shreya and Gail and everyone like them.
We are the cause of the persistence of TB.
And we must also be the cure.
So think about what it means to be human. Think about your own life, your own frailties, your resilience, the love you've received, the challenges you've faced. Now, try to imagine that multiplied by 1,250,000, the number who died just last year. That's why we have to work together to end tuberculosis and all the other diseases and injustice. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.